Good evening and welcome to the beginning of a new study that I'm going to do for a little bit of time every Wednesday night. I want to talk about um, what it means for us to teach the faith, to do discipleship in this utterly new time when our ability to do even public education and schooling is so changed by the situation that we're in. So we in the church have got to think about this too. Now, it's not going to be like this forever, but it has invited us into a time where we can think about how we're handing on the faith. And this is a time when congregations ought to be thinking and are thinking about what do we need to do differently? What are some things we've always done that maybe we can't and maybe even shouldn't do anymore the way we did them, and how do we continue the things that we think are really, really important? So I'm going to talk about that. I'd like to take just a moment first to share with you that we had Mike Wells' funeral. For those of you that don't know Mike and newer members, Mike and Liz were members of our church from back before I came here, and they years ago taught the college department. Mike was a deacon. Mike worked with our sound board and committee, and you probably saw him back there more than once up until a few years ago when they moved in retirement to be up in Fort Payne near their daughter Michelle, who grew up in our church, and her husband and two children. So I shared 25 years with Mike and Liz. Liz, of course, was a phenomenal member also, and a research librarian, historian, person who worked with lots of organizations and doing genealogical research and all kinds of things in her role in the library down at Samford. And Liz was a great gift to all of us and also served in so many capacities here in the church. And so it was very hard when Mike got news that he had this glioblastoma last fall, and he fought a good fight, and in the last 2 months the doctor said, it's time, it's coming. So we had a service at Southern Heritage in the funeral chapel, and many of you were there. I thank you for that. It was the first time I'd spoken to a live audience in 6 months, but it was a beautiful celebration of his life, and got to read some pieces that were written by Eric Spivey, who's a friend of our congregation. Eric was a student at Samford in this church, and when Eric was here, Mike had a great impact, he and Liz, on his life. He lived with them for a time, and he is now a pastor in Florida, and could not be with us because of a family obligation, but sent a wonderful piece that he wrote that I'm going to post and share with you in some way in the next day or two. And also Brother Marcus, who is the abbot at the St. Bernard's monastery in Cullman, was a childhood friend of Mike's. And Mike grew up Catholic, became Baptist later, and I referred to him as a Bapto-Catholic. I think those of us who are of ecumenical spirit, who believe that Christ is larger than our own denominational family, we are like families, and we also have an extended family. So the different historical traditions each make contributions to the greater faith, but we are all related in our common faith in Christ. And some people choose to be exclusive Christians, and some choose to be open-spirited Christians. I choose the latter, and I think our church largely has always been that way. And Brother Marcus and I hit it off when we talked, and he was not able to come because of his responsibilities, but he sent a lovely remembrance of Mike, which I will also share with you in the next day or so. So it was very meaningful, and so I wrote Brother Marcus yesterday and thought I would lift his day a little bit. And so I sent him a cartoon that I'm going to show you, and it's of two monks in the monastery, and one of them holding a ventriloquist dummy. Um, and I think you'll get the cartoon when I show it to you. So let me post that for you. Hope you enjoyed that. But when I sent it to Brother Marcus, I said, I hope this will give you a little lift to your day. And he said it did. It made him laugh out loud. And in fact, he posted it on the monastery bulletin board for all the brothers to enjoy. Now, I don't know if their vow of silence requires that they not laugh out loud. I'm not sure how that works. Okay, so I want to share for the coming weeks about how we do discipleship in this current moment. I think it's very important. And a lot of this grows out of an article that I did back in 2007. And if anything, I find that what I wrote seems to still be very relevant. And the article was called Stepping into the Drama. And in that article, I talked about the issue of catechism. That is not a Baptist word at all, but in many mainline denominations, what it means, and in the Catholic faith too, it is that role of teaching. It's a word meaning teaching. And so how we take those who are new in the faith and teach them what the gospel is and how to live it. And sort of the defining statement of that article was this, that catechesis, or teaching discipleship, invites all of us to assume our roles in an unfolding drama of God's continuing creation and redemption in the world. But we are threatened by some alternatives to that drama of God's. There are other stories, drama stories, the media, American culture and politics, and capitalism, and all of them share some things with us, but they have some things that are antithetical to us. So how do we live an authentic Christian life in the midst of this culture that is so conflicted with so many other things? And even in the Christian community, I find there are many weird things that are not Christian at all, and they are somehow lifted up as Christian, and people talk about it as though this is, the faith, and everybody has to see it this way. But I want to begin with sort of a word picture from Dorothy Sayers, the mystery writer who was a friend of C.S. Lewis's. And in her book, The Mind of the Maker, which was about really the doctrine of the Trinity, but she was writing out of her role as an author and an artist. And she said, the art has a kind of Trinitarian reality too. It is first an idea that any work of art, a sculpture, a painting, a play, a movie, anything that you do artistically begins as an idea in your mind. And you can walk around with it for a long time, and there are lots of ideas you may have of something you're going to do. But you know how it is when you get an idea, you keep thinking about it, but you never do anything about it. It never really gets out of your brain and onto a piece of paper or into an action or ever gets finished. And he says, you have to write it down as an author, for example, if you're going to write a play. And in the same way, in the Christian life, that's true. And then she said there's a third stage of this, and that is the audience has to experience that. And what that means is that a work of art is completed when it is also read and responded to by the people it's intended for. So there are these three pieces of it. It's an idea, it takes flesh, it takes page, it becomes real, and then it is experienced. Well, as we transmit the Christian life to one another, I think that's a great way to think about it, that in a sense we are in this drama, and maybe we're actors, maybe we're not the author, but we are the actors, and we receive this story, and we have to convey it by our actions, by our living. And I would say that we sometimes think of this instruction in the faith as being something you do as a 6-week class, and you learn some things about what it means to be a Christian, what it means to be a Baptist, or whatever, and then we've kind of got it. But in fact, everything we do in church together is part of this process. In other words, you learn a lot of the faith by singing hymns in worship. You learn the faith by praying prayers together, by reciting the Lord's Prayer, by going to a Bible study class on Sunday mornings. Every piece of that is part of initiating you into this drama, into this way of life. And it's going to put you in conflict with the world that you live in every day, and that's as it should be. So if we're going to do that, we have to enter this process, and I'm going to post a link for this, because this issue of the journal that it was in, which is called Christian Reflection, is actually online in the Baylor University website, and all the issues are available free to download or to just read there on the website, and I think you'll find it quite helpful. Tons of things on different aspects of the Christian life. And this fall, I'm going to look at how we handle the faith, and I'm going to share things that I've put together over the years that I hope you will have for your family and your children, your grandchildren. Please take these and use them. I'm going to give away everything I can think of this fall for you to have and post there. But I think there are 4 questions we have to really be thinking about. And number 1 is, in this fast-changing time, how do we help children, young people, and new Christians move from a 21st century culture to embrace this story and this life that began in the 1st century, but also continues to live vitally today? How do we hand on this tradition so that they can take it on and not either do it too superficially or to sort of miss the real meaning of what it is in their lives, so that they capture that? That's number 1. How do we hand it on? Secondly, how do we in the church embrace the idea that we don't already know everything about the faith, and that we need to learn more about our heritage and learn more about Scripture, about our theological heritage, and that it is profoundly the need that we must learn more than we know now. And we don't even realize how hard it is to take on everything in this life. But that's a big question. Thirdly, it calls us into a different way of being the Christian community, the church. Even though the habits and assumptions of the world around us, the prejudices and the politics of our social location are always going to be affecting us, how does the Bible, how does the Jesus story, how does the Christian walk become more central to us than those things? That's the third thing. And then finally, what are the practical ways that we carry this out day to day? Now, it's tempting for us to sometimes say, those were such good old days. It was so much easier back then. I'm not so sure. I'm not sure it was as easy then as we like to think, because we kind of have a way of forgetting all the hard parts of things and remembering only the nostalgic part. But what do we do to bring things to bear on that? Now, I want to close with this thought, and that is, there are basically 3 areas that I want to mention, 3 general aspects of what we are doing in this. And I get this from a writer named Richard Osmer. I really like the way he put it. And I've thought of it in ways of how we appropriate it, that is, thinking and experiencing and doing. All of those things are part of the way I keep learning the faith. If you don't come to church, or if you don't attend worship, or if you don't pray, if you don't read the Bible, you may in your mind say, well, I'm a Christian, but you are not learning, you are not appropriating, you are not imbibing this life, if you want to put it that way. So you have to be accessing the experiences of that. I have signed up for a class that I'm taking in little patches of spare time I have at night at the University of Pennsylvania on modern poetry, because I've never taken a class in modern poetry and I wanted to learn about it. And there are about 6,000 of us signed up for this class. It's a small class all over the world, but they are presenting us with the ability to watch the class where the young students are discussing the poems and listen to lectures and read things and all of that. And I think it's a wonderful thing. And so one of the things that is going to be part of what I consider going forward is technology and how we use this technology without it using us. We are expanding our ability to do video through this experience, but it cannot replace the importance of being together. I felt that on Monday, and it's really important that we also regather when we can, because there is something in that interactivity. But these resources give us ways to supplement that, to add to it. Nothing replaces a great teacher. Nothing replaces face-to-face fellowship. But there are things that can help supplement that, and the technology can be useful to us in that way. The problem is there's a lot of dumb, goofy, bad, incorrect stuff on the internet. So we need to guide one another in this and say, here's some good things, here's some things to stay away from. I think that Osmer's categories are these, and they will be helpful, and I'll close with this. First of all, he said we need, as we are instructing people in the faith, what he calls praxis or practice: worship, praying, witnessing, doing mission, helping the poor, advocating for justice, and developing personal spiritual disciplines. We need to be doing things. And everybody who's a Christian needs to be doing things. You need to find a job, not just to help your local church, but a job in the kingdom. And it may be out where you work. It may be in something that you involve yourself in. But also there are those things that help others. There are those things that help the church. There are the things that help yourself. But it's doing things. Secondly, he said doxology, prayer and worship. Worship's not entertainment. Worship is not something that you do depending on whether it's fun. So then the third, and we'll talk more about all of these. The third general area is what he calls therapeutics. That is, there is a personal journey that you're involved in, inner growth and healing, growing in grace, maturing, sanctification, that is, becoming a more holy person who lives more seriously your Christian life. And then along with that is theology, which is one of the tools of that. And so learning the faith is not like memorizing a list of state capitals when you're a child, but much more like an apprentice who learns a trade or an instrument or something else. So we're going to talk about this in the days to come. And this will get us into the thing of the challenge of this technological culture, the gaming culture, the internet, the web, how we learn, but also how we do what we do and what that means. And I hope you'll enjoy this time together, as we'll just assume that all of us are learning the faith for the first time, and we're going to talk through at this time how we can be more faithful Christians and convey that life to one another in the days to come. I hope you will enjoy that. But even more, I hope you will take it seriously and begin to ask, what are the practices? What is the aspect of my personal and collective worship? What is the aspect of my journey of healing and growing in grace that I need to take more seriously in this time? God bless you. Have a great week. See you Sunday.